Hi, I'm Lenny McGill with GlockStore Performance Center. And if you're looking for a better trigger pull for your Glock, and most of us are, one of the ways that you can do it is with the competition spring kit. In fact, it really helps a lot, more so than most people will give it credit for. The competition spring kit comes with 3 different springs that are designed to help lighten the trigger pull itself. All right? So first of all, you have a bag here, and I'm going to pull them out of the bag, and we have the big spring is a reduced power striker spring. All right, now obviously that makes a little bit of sense. Keeping in mind what happens is the striker spring is under tension, and when you pull the trigger, you're actually pulling back on the striker against that spring, and then the striker will actually be released by the trigger bar, and the striker goes forward. So the lighter the spring makes sense, the lighter the trigger pull. But it can't be too light so that it doesn't ignite or dent the primer enough to ignite the primer to ignite the round and make it go bang. So this is the perfect weight. Okay, it's a 4-pound spring. It does still work, but it reduces a lot of the trigger weight. The factory spring is approximately 6 pounds, 5.5 pounds. The other spring that is in part of this kit is a reduced power, I'm going to put it down here so you can see it, safety plunger spring. It's this little guy right here. All right, put my finger behind it so you can see it. Now, of course, the safety plunger interacts with the trigger bar and is pushed up under this spring pressure. So the lighter that spring pressure is, the lighter the trigger pull. Again, kind of adds up. Lighter here, lighter there, and lighter for the trigger pull. Makes a lot of sense, right? Okay, now I'll confuse you because the next spring is the actual trigger spring itself. This is a heavier spring than the factory. It's heavier because it works inversely with the trigger pull. It resets it. So the heavier trigger spring actually, again, lightens the trigger pull. All right? So I hope I didn't confuse it because we have 2 reduced power springs and 1 increased power, the actual trigger spring itself. Now, the installation of these is fairly simple, though you have to know how to take the gun apart and be familiar with the parts inside. So let's do that real quickly. Obviously, this is a Glock 17, brand new, never been fired factory. First things first, we want to make sure the gun is in fact unloaded, so I'll go ahead and I'll make sure the magazine's dropped, which I've already done. I'll pull the slide back and visually inspect that there are no rounds inside of the chamber. And then I'll pull the trigger in a safe direction. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. And that's basically it. One of the things I will tell you, and one of the things I always say, is that there's no ammunition in this room. There's no loaded magazines floating around. There's no way that I could inadvertently load this gun. Very important that you follow the same procedure. When you're in your workspace, when you're in the work mode, the maintenance mode, the cleaning mode, no ammunition should be present. That being said, let's go ahead and disassemble the gun now. Glock itself is very easy to disassemble. Most of you know, you hold the gun in that position right there. Pull the slide back just a little bit, about 1/4 inch, and we're going to access the slide lock lever or the takedown lever. That's right here. All right, you pull that down on both sides at the same time, let the slide go, maybe push it forward with your finger just a little bit. Make sure you don't push it too aggressively because it will slide off. And people have dented their slides, so you want to be very careful not to just push it and have it slide off onto the floor. Then slide the slide off. We basically have the lower or the receiver and the upper or the slide. So the first thing we'll work on will be the plunger spring. So we're going to work on the upper part first. If we look inside the slide here, there's our safety plunger, and there's our striker. Now watch the striker. You can see that it will go forward when I depress the safety plunger. That's basically how that works. The other thing to think about, to notice, is if I grab this striker and I pull it back, that's this spring we're talking about. So the striker is captured inside this slide, and this striker spring sits basically right here, compressed onto the striker itself. And that's what makes it go bang. And again, if I have the safety plunger depressed, it'll poke through the actual breech face there of the gun. Without the safety plunger depressed, it does not. So that's one of Glock's built-in safeties. So it's important that you never alter or mess with that because it's a really good idea. It's kind of genius-like in a sense that it's so simple, but yet so effective. Okay, to gain access to these parts, we need to remove the slide cover plate. But I think, I'm going to go ahead and remove the barrel and the guide rod and everything too, just to get it stripped out completely. There's the barrel. Put those parts off the side. Okay, to gain access to the parts in here, we've got to remove this slide cover plate. And it's a fairly simple procedure, but a lot of people, kind of scratch up, ding up their slide cover because they don't understand what's going on. If we just take a look here real quick, and I've got a striker out of the gun, you're going to notice that this is the striker assembly, okay? And it sits inside the slide, basically like this, okay? And this plastic spacer sleeve, it's called, has spring pressure on it, and it is pushing back against the back of the slide cover plate, right basically here. So it's almost impossible to take the slide cover plate off without removing the pressure or reducing the pressure exerted by this spring onto the spacer sleeve. That being the case, it's a very simple thing to do is you basically want to reach up in here and you'll notice right in here, and I hope my camera can get a shot of it. There we go. That little black, I'm going to put it down so I don't move too much. The little black plastic that corresponds basically with this guy, I'm seeing just a little peak of it right there. That needs to be depressed before I can actually remove that slide cover plate. So now that I've showed you that, I'm going to go ahead and grab a punch so I can gain access to that. And I'm going to come up in here and push this down with the punch. And while I do that, again, it's a little hard for me to show you that, but it's basically right there. While I do that, then I'm going to take my thumb up here on top, push down, and use my thumb to lever this off. And it's fairly simple, except when you have sweaty palms, sweaty fingers, should I say. Okay, so now it's basically halfway off, all right? And it's ready to come. I just wanted to show you that, and so I'll push down a little bit more and push off with my thumb all the way. So now I've captured the parts inside. They're not really going to go flying away, but they could, so make sure you keep your thumb there. They are under spring pressure. And there's the slide cover plate. Now what's important is that I was able to take it off without scratching it up, okay? That's, I think, I have a lot of guys call and say, oh, it's all bugged up because they were in there with a tool trying to pry it off, and they don't understand that you have to reduce that spring pressure. But once you understand it, it's easy, right? Okay, so that guy's out of the way. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the parts here so I can gain access to our safety plunger. First, we'll just pull the striker right out by grabbing the striker lug here. And the striker assembly comes out as one piece. And there it is. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull out the extractor plunger assembly. And there's really three parts here. This is the little black plastic piece right here, the spring itself, and the steel rod that intersects with the extractor. All right, so that's an assembly too, so we're not going to mess with that today. And then we have the extractor itself and the safety plunger. Right here's the safety plunger, and there's the extractor. That's the hook that grabs hold of the cartridge and pulls it out. So I'll push the button here, which is the safety plunger, and the extractor should fall out. Voila, just like that. And here comes the safety plunger. Voila. Okay. So now the factory spring is kind of captured in there, so we just want to twist it off. Okay, so it goes in and you twist it in or twist it off. And I'm going to put it down next to the competition spring here. And I want you to notice the size difference in both length and girth too. Oops. All right, now that's important to understand that that's one of the reasons it's a lighter spring. Just really physically you can see this one's bigger than that one. And the factory being bigger will have more tensile strength or spring strength to it. But that could be a concern to you too, because you'll notice when you put this guy, this little competition spring, into here, it doesn't quite capture itself like the factory one does. And that's okay. All right, we know that it's smaller by design. It's smaller because it's supposed to be less trigger pull when I pull the trigger. So we're going to put that in there, and we're going to be aware of the fact that it doesn't stay in by itself. It will fall out if I am not careful, okay? So I'm going to put it in there. I can give it a little twist as well, and that will kind of anchor it a little bit, so it may not come out quite like that. But one of the things I want to be aware of is when I put it back up into the frame, into the slide, that it doesn't get kinked or go backwards or sideways or anything like that.